Terrifying. Okay, so so today we where was I? Yes, scope and hoisting. I do feel like these are extremely important things to address and to feel very comfortable in, which if you keep hearing me talking about it, that's why. And in the JavaScript assessments, we do have a part at the end called the fundamentals exercises, where you will be presented with exercises in a mix of scope, hoisting, closures, binding, things like that. So is it next week or the week after? I think I'm doing a closures and bindings group, so that'll be fun. But today, scope and hoisting. So we can't get too far into scope and without really knowing what it means. So does anyone want to give a definition of scope a crack? It doesn't have to be specific to programming even, or a language.
This is Justin. Scoping in programming would be like what basically, without using the word scope, that's really hard. Basically, the stuff that is in the control of something. So usually we're talking about a function. So what variables or what information do you have access to would be in scope.
Yeah, definitely.
Or a function.
And I like what Sushi said in chat. Content. She says it means the context. So and then context, we could get into, okay, well, what's context? Because there's definitely we could get into a specific definition of it in this world, but context in general, we can understand the context of if I ask you, hey, how do I define plant? And you say, well, give me some context. So we can think about, okay, well, what is our current situation? So current situation, or also access rights, I like to sometimes think of scope as. And really it means the same thing for us in programming as it does outside of programming. It's what do we have access to at any given time? What is the meaning and purpose of where we currently are? That's a bit more of a philosophical take on that. And this is really something that we can twist to our advantage, but we can't change it. So that's something we really want to be able to understand. And there's a very good chance that, I was going to say eventually, but maybe even now, a lot of this is already in your subconscious. You already subconsciously know what's going to happen when you see some of these things. I think it's a great exercise to be able to look at something and anticipate what's going to happen and understand exactly why. It's the kind of thing that could come up in a cheeky technical interview question, but also just as you're writing your own code, knowing, okay, well, if I make this decision, if I put this here, where can I access it? And what you don't want to do is make everything accessible everywhere, just in case, because that doesn't sound particularly secure. So knowing what's appropriate for this piece of data. So let's have a talk about, we can't really go too far into scope without talking about variables or data types and things that we can put into variables. So let's just go roughly over the data types in JavaScript. And honestly, I'm probably going to do this every session because it's a good thing to be able to just knock out like that. So what are our data types in JavaScript? I'll start with one, string. Ooh. Oh, Sushi already got string.
Number.
Yeah, string, number. Sushi says null. Yes.
Objects.
Yes.
Boolean.
Object's a really interesting one. Okay, more?
Sushi said Boolean.
Boolean, yes, thank you. I think we're missing... Array,
oh no, array's an object.
Function, yes, Justin, beautiful. That is a data type. And array, I don't think has been said. and
Does that count?
undefined. Sorry?
Does that count since it's also an object?
Yeah, so that's why I said object's an interesting one. So an array, we've got two collection types, array and object. And when I'm saying object in that situation, I'm meaning a curly brace JavaScript object. A POJO, my favorite, it's my third favorite word in programming, POJO. I feel like in a year I'm going to be like, Meg, what are my 3 favorite words in programming? She's going to know. So yeah, POJO, plain old JavaScript object, curly brace vibe. So arrays and objects are our collection types. And yes, exactly. What's my second favorite? I don't think Meg knows my second favorite, actually. You have to get to the final section of the course.
Yeah, I don't
So we've got collections of arrays and objects, and those 2 items, and also null as a data type, are actually considered objects in data type. I know you're like, what on earth did you just say? So let's just do that. Let me share my screen. This is a good time to do that. Portion.
Oh, you didn't say undefined.
I slipped it in at the end there, but you're absolutely right.
Okay.
No, if you didn't hear me, absolutely undefined as well. So welcome to maths class. Maths has an S on it by then, by the way. Do you know what the method is that we can use in JavaScript to find out what type of data something is?
Type of.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go type of blue, and it tells me it's a string. Awesome. We can do a type of undefined, and it's undefined. That's fun. So it is a piece of data. Undefined is a piece of data. Okay, so now let's go for type of this, and we're like, yeah, of course it's an object. Duh. But like, check out this. It says it's also an object, and we know this is an array. It's a collection type of an array. But in terms of JavaScript, it's just seeing this as a complex piece of data known as an object. So in JavaScript, we have our primitives and we have our complex. So our primitives, I think I've already mentioned. I don't want to open that file just yet. We've got string, number, Boolean, undefined. That's it. And we've got our complex objects. So that is POJOs, plain old JavaScript objects, our arrays, and also, interestingly enough, null. Fascinating, right? Welcome to JavaScript. So null is a complex type of object. And then we've got one other complex piece of data. And actually, do you know what? I think Justin mentioned it in chat. And they are functions. So let's just have a quick review of functions. So what's the minimum I need to define a function?
You need to write function, and then like
I'm taking a mix of what Meg's saying and what I'm seeing in chat. So Meg said function. Was the word.
the curly braces.
Yeah. So I'm seeing parentheses and then curly braces. So okay. So it says function statements require a function name. What if I just don't do that? Let's see. So Sushi gave me this, and it's like, what? I don't know what you're talking about. So let's give it a name. Function, hey. Function, hey. Yeah, okay, fine, great. So now I'm going to do type of, hey, and it says I'm a function, which is pretty cool. So something that's really, really awesome in JavaScript that we could not do in Ruby was we can actually store functions in variables. How cool is that? So if I was like, I've now got this function of hey, and I could say maybe var hello. I want to make it a little more refined. would be this. Okay, beautiful. So now I can actually, hello is now a function, which is insane. We could not do this in Ruby. This is really, 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 really cool. And I can invoke it and give it anything to do, but never mind. Now I'm gonna let's try and. It hates it. It doesn't want to allow me to do it. But we will have. I'm not sure if I already put it up. There will be one really looking at functions and all their glory and various types. So we'll dig into anonymous functions and.
If you did a iffy, would it work?
If I did a what, sorry?
An instantly invoked function expression after type of, would it work?
Like this?
Like
malformed.
Like an iffy, like it's all wrapped in the parentheses.
Like this?
And then the curly brackets, yeah.
No, it doesn't seem to like it. Yeah, Lee's saying Chrome isn't playing nice. People are having more luck elsewhere. So yeah, it looks like my Chrome console is not impressed with my anonymous functions. Fair enough, I'll deal with it. But I do want to do a whole study group on functions and all their gloriousness. So don't worry, we'll grab a console who likes that for that. Entitled Chrome, indeedly, but I love it. So we've gone over our data types and we started talking about what we can store in variables, which is almost anything. Fantastic. And we're gonna stick for the moment just with var to start talking about scope. And so we've got var, and what are our other two declaration words we can use? Once, yeah, and that, yeah, beautiful. So also today we're going to have a little look into, quite a heavy look into the differences between all three of them. But let's start with var, because let and const, they're still relatively new. They're not new anymore. We still like to say it. So let's have a look at, yeah, here we go, maths time. So this is what was running before. Now, I've got this running immediately, and it works. So I got, hello, welcome to maths class. The answer is ... and then this 10 is returned. So these white letters are all console logs, and 10 is a return value. Oh yes, I can zoom in. How's that? I'll do code as well. Better? Awesome. Sorry about that. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to move around some of these console logs. So as we can see, it's all working at the moment, and it makes sense because what's that? I have no idea what that was. We're basically logging these things as soon as they are declared, so it makes sense they're immediately available. Yeah, it's all ready to go. So I'm going to take out all these console logs, and I'm going to start putting them in other places, and we're going to try and anticipate what happens. So let's start with, well, first of all, let's start down here. Console.log A. And we'll keep them separate so we can easily move them around, actually. A, B, C, and answer, obviously, like continuity. Okay, cool. So what do I have access to here? If I just run this file. A, A in chat. A and only A. Cool. Yeah, I think you're dead right. Yeah, okay, cool. So it says, it's printed out hello. And then it said uncaught reference error, B is not defined. Okay, fine, we'll forget about B. And C is not defined. Well, never mind, we'll forget about it. And answer is also not defined. So yes, A and only A. Okay, so not ideal, but we'll deal with it. Let's pop this here. And we'll start talking about why after we've run a couple of these. So I am running maths time. Maths time does trigger this problem function to run. A, B, and C. Okay, cool. So let's go for that. Awesome. So this was interesting. We've got hello, welcome to maths class. The answer is undefined. So that was fun. So it wasn't was a reference error. Before we were having these reference errors. It's like I literally no idea what you're talking about. But here it seems to have an awareness of something to do with this answer variable. It's undefined, but you know, it's but it's aware of it. So that's kind of interesting, and it makes sense. I feel like that makes sense. Or does it make sense? Let's have a read through it. So console log A, is console log A available in the scope of this problem function? So it's certainly not defined in there. So what it did, it had a look in here and it was like, nah, I see nothing to do with the word A. And then it looked outwards and it said, well, I see nothing to do with the word A. So it looked outwards again and it found hello. So if I make another var here, which one is it going to pick up for A?
Goodbye.
Exactly. So because it found it here and then it quit. Just changed. So this is, we're going to dig a little bit more into this. Is this a reassignment? Is it a new declaration in a different file? But what I'm definitely focusing on with this one is this idea of lexical scope. So when I say lexical scope, I mean the ability to introspect. The ability to extrospect, so to look outwards, but the inability to introspect. And we want to have a look at how this is working for us. So with B, it's said, okay, I don't see you in here. I do see you in here. Fantastic. So now, so it doesn't matter. We could have all the B's in the world out here, but it's not going to be able to see them. Console log C, it didn't have to even go anywhere. It's done in that exact same scope. So the scopes that we're looking through here is our function. It's going to start looking there, and then it's going to look out, and the next scope it finds is also function. The scope after that is just our main scope. It's just having a look around. Okay, and console log answer. So answer is not defined in here. It is defined out here. The reason it's undefined is we've set it to this and it's not actually finished running yet. So we haven't finished executing this problem. When we're console logging answer, that means that it's before it's finished assigning this, hence our undefined. Super fun. So, any questions about this idea of lexical scope, the ability to look outwards but not inwards, and anything that you guys want to try?
So I have a question and something to try.
Cool.
On line 11 for answer, is that technically, even though it's coming back as undefined, that's still like that's still considered able to access the scope, right?
Yeah, so if I make this actually something else. Oh, hello.
Because it's not like throwing an error, it's just giving you undefined.
Yeah, so the reason it was undefined is because I was being a bit obtuse and setting it to the return value of this function, which by the time it gets to here, running the function has not actually been decided yet. Hence, we've got this undefined. So if I just set it to 2 manually here, then it's okay. So I do have access to this as long as it's finished executing however I assign the value. So it's gonna, because that doesn't rely on that, it's going to be all right. If I ran this, and I was starting to get a little bit into another topic, which we're also going to look at today, but if I ran that first, then it's undefined again because it's not actually yet hit the actual assignment of answer there. But that's starting to get into hoisting, which we're going to save for the second half.
Okay, and then you couldn't just move console log answer underneath that return statement because the return just stops that function problem, right?
Exactly. So right now we've got it so the answer is, oh, well, let's pop it, let's make it actually work. Okay, so the answer is 7. If I console log answer underneath this, it's going to do exactly what you said. It sees that return keyword, and the return keyword triggers a couple of things. It will execute whatever it's pointing to. It will return back the value it evaluates to, and then it will quit the function. So this line never even ran at any point.
Put it like on 14, then it should, well, yeah, then it should log, right?
So we're not going to dwell on this too much because we'll start dwelling on it in approximately 5 minutes with a different example. But what do you anticipate answer is going to be at that point?
And
why does Sushi say below 18?
Oh, yeah, because it's going to be undefined still. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's undefined, and it's also printed out before hello, which makes sense because we didn't stop printing that out until we invoke the function.
Good call, Sushi. Okay, cool.
Yeah, cool.
So we'll be getting into that soon.
We're very soon, literal minutes. Before we do that, I want to have a look at scope and what we have in terms of the 3 types of scope, or 3 of the types of scope, and how they behave, how const, let, and var behave differently with them. So let's pop this back to pop this back to how I want it. There we go. And do you know what? I'm actually just going to comment this out because I don't want to keep seeing it in the. Yep. So let's go to scope. And we have got here, now heads up, this is extremely obnoxiously similar to one of the JavaScript fundamentals exercises I do in my assessments. So well worth getting involved. So I have got here a function twinkle twinkle. It sets the lyrics to the traditional version of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star into 4 variables. One is declared as a var, one is declared as a let, one is a const, and then we've got this atrocity. If this is true, true is always true, And then we've got, so this is always going to run. It says A equals, it's exactly the same thing, but it's the Lewis Carroll version. After it's run that block, we console log all 4 lines. So what are we feeling? What are we going to see here? And you can give me, you know what, I'll make this easy. I'll make this easier. You don't have to tell me the actual lines, or you can just say trad or Carol. So lines 14 through 17, what are they going to give me back? Oh. How do I spell Carol? Just like that.
So A, reassign, Twinkle Twinkle Little Bat. B should also reassign to How I Wonder What You're At. C can't because it's a const. And I'm not sure about D, actually.
So you think A is going to print out the Carol, B the Carol, C?
Well, I don't know. Actually, C, well, because actually C should just be Carol because it's looking at its. But no, I'm not sure about C because it's already been declared and it's a const. So then it might just stay local and may just do the Carol version and go up above the world we fly.
Okay.
I think.
And D?
Oh, but wait, it's not. Oh, okay. Actually, it's. Sorry, I've just seen the placement of it. I thought it was outside.
Outside what?
Outside the function. Okay. Let's see.
Yeah, so we've got just one function, and within the function, all my code is inside Twinkle Twinkle, and then we've got this if block.
Oh, that's
So what we gotta remember that let and const has block scoping as well.
Nice. What does that mean, Meg?
So like even though they're in that function, like inside that if statement, let B and let C, or let B and const C, that B and C variable are different than the ones being printed on lines 15 and 16.
Absolutely.
So I think it's trad for B and C, and then Carol for A and D, because they're being reassigned.
All right, let's run it. Let's run it and see what happens. Cool, so we've got Carol, trad, Carol, which I believe is actually exactly what Meg said. So really nice job. And you exactly caught out the essential point here, that let and const have a block scoped. var does not care about this block. It can't even see it. For all my var cares, this whole function just looks like that. It literally doesn't pay any mind at all. So here we kind of make sense, like, okay, well, this is, oh, that's a mess. When we've got access to it, no problem here. So with the let, I don't even have access to this variable. This is a completely different variable to this one. it belongs in a different house and it does not have access. They don't have access to each other's houses immediately. And because of our lexical scoping, this console log B is actually just going to look in the first place it finds, which is in its current local scope of this function, and it finds this nice trad version. C is going to do the same, let and const, both block scoped. They pay mind to this, so these guys do not escape, so to speak. D, this atrocity, yeah, just change it. Cool. Okay. Any thoughts, questions around that? We're going to start moving these around and see how it affects us.
So D behaves like a var, basically.
D, yeah, in this situation, it has behaved like a var.
What do you call it though? Because it's not a var, or is it a var?
Well, it's a variable, but it's not been declared as such. So it's sort of just, it's a value assigned to this bare word. It doesn't, we call, so var and const are variable declaration keywords. As you can see, it doesn't have one, so it doesn't get any of the good stuff that comes along with it, which is actually going to be really interesting when it comes to hoisting, especially. So yeah, let's go take these in here. What do we get here? Justin says, "Oh, Carol," and I think he's right. Yeah, beautiful. So it doesn't really matter what's happening elsewhere, because these are all going to look, first of all, in the most local scope they can find, which is this block scope, and ta-da, they're all right here for the taking. So we don't need to even worry about what's going on outside. Awesome. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put them back where they were, but this time we are, instead of giving them, assigning these new variables, I'm just going to take those away. Now it starts to get a bit interesting.
So now I think it's going to be trad, or no, Carol, trad, Carol.
Okay, so all Carol apart from C. So why not C?
Because you can't change the value of const.
Okay.
After it's declared.
Yeah. So you're very much saying the right thing. What we've got here is an immediate error. It hates me. It's not even going to let me try. So it's saying assignment to a constant variable. So yeah, what we can't do here is we can't take this const and reassign it. So
Justin had it. He's like, it's going to throw an error.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we've got our equal sign. It's our assignment operator. That can also be a reassignment operator. So in this situation, I'm actually reassigning here because I've not given it any declarations. Now with my D, it never had one in the first place, so it doesn't have any security or rules at all. So that's why that's really good fun. So let's comment out this console log. Well, the console log isn't the issue, is it? It's the actual reassignment of it. So let's take out both. No, I'll leave that one in. So now we're saying hopefully all Carol. Obviously I took out that reassignment of C, so we're presuming that's going to be trad if anything. And it absolutely is. Yeah, beautiful. So we can see that we can't reassign our constant. We can reassign our let's, that's no problem. And A and D are acting, yeah, we can reassign this. And again, remember for our var, it can't even see this, so wouldn't be a problem. All right, so let's see. How about, am I allowed to do this?
Yeah,
Yeah, why am I allowed to do that?
because you're not changing the value, you're,
Yeah. Oh, sushi. Yeah, great one, because you're not changing the memory space. I'm not reassigning it. I'm not saying here's something completely different. I'm just taking that, in this case, this complex object that we know as an array, and I'm manipulating the innards of it. I'm not saying here's a new array for you to look at. It's not reassignment. It's just manipulation. And manipulation is apparently okay in JavaScript. In JavaScript, manipulation normally not okay. Beautiful. So that's most of scope covered, really. We've talked about our lexical scoping, about we can look outwards, but we can't look inwards. And we've seen how let and const are respectful of block scoping, whereas our var is essentially blind to them. And that's essentially it. And I do think that if you haven't already, that will start becoming quite natural for you in your subconscious. Definitely worth taking a moment every so often to review it out loud, or consciously think through some of that, because it's definitely important. All right, let's go and have a look at some hoisting. And some of what we've spoken about is definitely going to be useful in that as well. We can't really talk about hoisting too far without starting to talk about the two phases in which a JavaScript file is read, or I should say that one context is read. So anyone give me, what are the names of those two phases?
the execution context and it's not interpolation context.
Sushi declaration. It's not a bad word for it. It's
Compilation.
Yeah, compilation. Sushi's word of declaration makes a lot of sense. But compilation or creation phase, you'll hear for those two. So we've got our, I'm going to say compilation phase today, and then our execution phase. So essentially what's happening is every time it starts a new scope, so for example, when I read this file, it did the two phases. And then when I invoked this function, it went through those two phases again. And there's a very cool tool to visualize that, which hopefully we'll have a look at too. Okay, what happens in the first read through?
It declares, you go and declare your execution contexts and your variables.
Okay, cool. And then what about the second one?
You execute the functions.
Yeah, it executes the code that's in there. So we're gonna dig a little bit more into what that means exactly. So let's go to my hilarious joke. All right, we're gonna see a lovely joke twice. What's it gonna say? I'll rerun the file. So on basically our question is on line 5, what are we going to log person as? On line 11, what are we going to log person as? Okay, so we've got 3 options in chat. We've got Justin saying Beth both times. Sushi saying undefined first time, then Beth second.
Yeah.
Lou said error, person is undefined, then changed his mind to back up Sushi. All right, cool.
I'm going with Sushi too.
All right, let's see what happens. Yeah, absolutely. So first time undefined, second time Beth. Okay, why?
Because when it goes through the compilation phase, it reads and it sees like, oh, there's a variable here called person. That's good to know. And then
Cool story,
it goes through and executes. So like in the compilation phase, it doesn't care like what the actual value is of that variable. But then when it executes, since it's going down line by line, when it logs person, it doesn't actually know what that is yet, and then it reads it. So the next time it knows that person is Beth.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm gonna just take that out just to see for interest what happens if we don't declare it at all. And now we get this person is not defined. Please be very aware of the difference between not defined and undefined. 2 very different stories. Not defined causes visually ugly, terrifying errors. Undefined causes terrifying, silent errors where data is just missing. So sometimes undefined is really useful. Not defined is never useful. For that's a lie. Errors are really useful. This is definitely handy. So but the key thing is that we didn't get that reference error when var was actually in there, even though this whole business, lexically speaking, happened after this. So there's an exercise that you might see or you might do where we say, okay, let's rewrite this file so things are kind of lexically in the order in which they happen when the file is read. So what would happen if we wanted to do that? What would move?
You'd move line 7 up to the top.
All of it?
Yeah.
That's going to give me the same result?
Yeah.
That's going to give me Beth both times.
Wait, isn't that what you wanted?
I wanted to get the same result as having my code down here.
Sorry, what do you mean?
So, no, yeah, so I'm going for this.
You can, yeah, declare it up there and then assign it down there.
Yeah, so this is, sorry, maybe I wasn't very clear. So what I've done here is I've reorganized my code lexically, so visually in my file to imitate the order in which these things happen over those two reads. So this is, relatively pointless. It hasn't changed the functionality at all, but this is essentially what's happening. And this is where this word hoisting comes from. I'm not a big fan of the word, but this is where the word comes from, because there's this idea that we hoist up the declaration. Declaration, Jambasushi said that was as a thought for the name of the first process. It wasn't correct. You're not going to see that in blogs, but it's a very good name for it. Because one of the things that happens in there is the declaration of our variables, but not the assignment. So this this declaration is not the same in business as the assignment. This is actually a piece of executing code. Okay, let's comment this out. And I want to try this with a let. What happens? So with var, it was undefined, and then Beth. What do we get now? Same thing is the story and chat. Okay, let's see.
I don't think so.
All right, what do you think, Meg?
I think it'll throw an error because let doesn't get hoisted.
Okay, cool, let's see. So you're absolutely right, it has thrown an error. The error itself is interesting. Cannot access person before initialization. What it does not say is person is undefined. So we can see that it has read through, it's aware that this person is around, but it's not going to give us access to it until we've completed this whole business. Well, not necessarily the business, but lexically speaking, we're asking it for it to happen before this, and it's not going to let us do this.
For this, like, don't you have to put let person at the top like you just did with var person?
Yeah, so let's see what happens now. So this worked absolutely fine for when we did this with var. We got undefined and then Beth, and we're going to get exactly the same thing here. So this makes sense, right? We can change lets, no problem. And we have now initialized it before we are trying to use it. Now, I think I completely forgot to mention, but I did see someone mention it in chat, that if we declare a variable without a value, it is going to give it undefined. And same thing when, as you saw with var, when the var is hoisted, it's given this default value of undefined, which is why we're getting undefined and not just absolutely nothing. So it is giving it a value. Okay, cool. So this is a great way to use let. Let's try with const here.
This one's tricky though.
Why is that?
Because so this one doesn't get, both let and const don't get hoisted, but you can't do what you did with putting let person at the top and then assigning its value on line 7.
Okay, so what's going to happen when I run this code as is?
It will throw an error again.
What kind of error?
That you can't use person before it's been initialized.
So that's Meg. She's saying person does not exist. Lou's saying cannot access before initialization. And yeah, the initialization one is actually what's happening here. So it's read through, it's aware of this thing, and then it's fine. It's like, yeah, I know what you're talking about, but I'm not going to let you do that. So let's put our const at the top. Const. So now I think Meg already said this, but what's the problem with this code, or what? I'm going to get an error here, but what's the error going to say?
Can't reassign a const.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, actually, no, not even that. It's just like you haven't even written valid JavaScript.
Yeah, because you have to assign a value to a const when you declare it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think this is really interesting. It's literally a syntax error. it's not even saying, oh, you reassigned your const. It's like, I think you forgot something. So it won't give you this freebie undefined value. You know, there's two ways that could have gone, right? It could have done something like this, or it could say, oh, I'm gonna define it as undefined, and then it won't let me reassign it. So yeah, it's just not valid JavaScript. There we go. Cool. So the reason that let and const are pretty great, among other reasons, is that it does really encourage the declaration of your variables visually high up in your code. So lexically at the top of whatever scope you're working in, whether it's the top of your file and the top of your function and top of your block for let and const. And that's really nice to work with. I can look at something and like, okay, what variables am I working with in here? Even if you're not sure what that's going to be yet, that's okay. But you know, let me know that there's a person involved in here. So that's why I really like let and const. I think they're extremely useful. Okay. Now, one more thing. I'm going to make person a function. All right, what happens now?
I think it returns both times.
Cool, and Justin's saying same. And why?
Because
okay, so Justin's saying function declarations hoist. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely right.
you're invoking it right in there. So
yeah. And so what actually happens is that I have
poor Lou.
that's okay. So if I'm going to take out all my invocations of it and just run this code like this, and I can actually see that person is of course a function, but when I look at it, it's the whole body of the function is there. It's all ready to go. Woo, hello. So that's pretty cool. So it's the whole thing is being hoisted. It's ready to go. Okay, so now I want to do one more. And oh, actually no. Oh no, go on. Const person equals. Justin saying the same. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's gonna throw an error.
Let's give this a go. Yeah, so it's our standard const. So this, now Justin actually said it perfectly when he said what was going to happen with my first function I tried. He said function declarations hoist. Correct. This is not a function declaration. This is declaring a variable of person, which eventually in the execution phase will be assigned to this anonymous arrow function. So not quite the same. This is just a const. It's still your standard old const.
Tricky.
Hi. It's okay. So our const it behaved the same as any other const. We can't access it before initialization, no matter what it is. Let.
It's going to be the same error as with const.
Exactly, just like we saw before. And how about var? Think carefully.
Well, that's going to be undefined for the first one, and then Beth.
that's what person will be equal to on line 5 and 13, yes. Any issues you're seeing with that, especially on line 5? So implication will get weird. Yes, exactly. So yeah, person. We're gonna, on the first read through, it's gonna see person. It's going to set it equal to what?
The function definition. Or wait, on the first read through?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So she's undefined.
Yeah.
Okay. So by the time it gets to here, person is undefined. Can I invoke undefined?
Oh no, so it'll throw an error.
Yeah, it'll say person is not a function, which makes sense. Person is indeed undefined. That's all it is. Ta-da. And it wasn't a reference error. It was just undefined. It's been given this temporary value. Awesome. So yeah, just to let me bring this up. So this is essentially our overview of how these different things act. And our function declarations, yes, they get hoisted, but if you're just using a function expression, you're saving it in a variable, it's just a variable. It doesn't get any superpowers because it's not even going to know what it's assigned to until that second phase.
It doesn't evolve into a super variable?
Unfortunately not.
Oh man.
Variable. It's going to be meg script. Beautiful. Oh wait, just before we go, what do you reckon is going to happen here?
It'll return Beth both times.
Okay, so you reckon these things get hoisting?
No, because it's a global variable. So you didn't. Ooh.
Yeah, this is an assignment of some random value to some random bear word. It doesn't get any privileges like hoisting or freebie values assigned to it. It's, if you want something like that, you still gotta. Oh, thank you. I mean, it won't change a thing because it's still undefined. Note the error was not person is not a function. So same thing.
Okay.
Kind of fun.
That's
all
really
right, guys.
interesting.
I gotta head off, but thank you so much. If you have any questions on all this stuff, please feel free to keep coming to the weekly fundamentals stuff. Get to JavaScript office hours. You're very welcome to Slack me. It could take me a couple of days to get back to you in Slack, just as a warning. But I will see you around there.
Thank you so
Paul,
much, Beth.
you're so welcome. I hope everyone stays safe. Oh wait, let me finish the recording. Recording stopping.